I'm Amy Sullivan. I'm the Limpopo Basin leader for Phase 2 of the Challenge Program on Water and Food. I work for something called the Food, Agriculture and Natural Resources Policy Analysis Network. We work in southern Africa, and particularly the SADC region, and we look at implications of policy on agricultural livelihoods and development in that region. As the basin leader in Limpopo, we're working with a very diverse basin, about 14 million people, half of whom are rural, most of whom are poor. We work in 4 countries. The basin begins in Botswana, covers South Africa, parts of Zimbabwe and Mozambique as well. There's quite a range of colonial histories. There's a wide range of economic development across those 4 states. We're all fairly familiar with the apartheid regime, recent events in Zimbabwe, Botswana's economic development based on diamonds. So it's quite a diverse area. We deal with quite a range of conditions for the rural populations.
So why is CPWF working in the basin? What are some of the major challenges that you're addressing?
The CPWF is working in the Limpopo in Phase 2 to build on what was done mainly in Phase 1, but also prior to that by a number of research institutions, including, of course, CGIAR centers. In Phase 1, we began to uncover and refine a number of research issues there that seem to be priorities for reducing rural poverty for populations. Our basin development challenge in the Limpopo is how to increase rain-fed agricultural productivity. Almost by definition, that puts us with small-scale farmers and those farmers that don't have the resources to control their environment, say installing big irrigation schemes. So as a livestock-dominant basin, which is often overlooked in the Limpopo, one of our key aspects is going to be rangeland management. How does rain-fed productivity help improve livestock productivity? So in some ways it's managing water to grow plants, to feed animals, to improve livelihoods.
And who are the main partners who you're working with for this Basin Development Challenge?
We've got a great group of partners in the Limpopo Basin. We've got 5 projects in this round, all integrated, working together, sharing research sites, sharing research designs and researchers and teams. One of the projects is led by the Stockholm Environmental Institute. One is led by the Agricultural Research Council, ARCF South Africa. One of the projects is led by ICRISAT, which is one of the CGIAR centers, and the team is based in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. One of our projects on water governance is led by WaterNet, which is a capacity-building network of water scientists and specialists in Southern Africa, and my institution, FANRAPAN, is leading the 5th project. In addition to the project leads, some of our other partners include the Global Water Partnership. We've got researchers from national universities in all 4 of these countries. We have provincial departments of agriculture as partners, so we've got quite a wide range. There are NGOs involved. We've involved the private sector as well.
And over the lifetime of the Basin Development Challenge, what are you aiming to achieve?
I think the first thing we will achieve is better research, which is going to give us, first of all, a deeper understanding of conditions across the basin and what some of the drivers of change are there. That will turn into recommendations for increasing productivity that are eventually meant to reduce poverty. Also, in this day and age, given the reality of climate change and ecological change and degradation, we also want to be able to say something about best practices now that are going to be sustainable in the longer term and that aren't going to exhaust the resources so that people have to completely change livelihoods in the next generation.
So, if the Basin Development Challenge is effective, and how would the key people, for example the poor farmers in the Limpopo Basin area, be impacted?
We're looking for impact across a fairly wide range, and that also makes the Basin Development Challenge approach a bit innovative. My organization works with policymakers and decision makers at a very high level. We're going to give them the best available research-based evidence on which to make their policy decisions. But some of our teams are working at the ground level, and they'll be designing a better irrigation system, or they'll be helping strengthen institutional arrangements around small water infrastructures so that the governance of these scarce and valuable resources better meet the needs, and in the longer term, for the users and the rural populations that depend on these things. So we expect our impact to be quite wide-ranging. Eventually then it gets scaled out and hopefully then gets out of the basin, it gets across the SADC region and hopefully to other basins in West and Eastern Africa.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.